Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I am coming back at you with another Wargaming in Miniature video. In this video, we're going to continue on with my World War II project update. And in the update, I wanted to show off the progress that I've made on my Lafayette Bridge terrain battlefield. This is an 8-foot by 5-foot table or table tiles. Now, instead of me taking my ping pong table and unwrapping it and then putting the tiles out on the ping pong table, which is why I made it this. I could have made it a 9 by 5, but I figured the game calls for an 8-foot table, so I made an 8-foot table. So there'll be a little bit extra on the ends when I eventually put it on my ping pong table. And a ping pong table is 5 feet wide, so this works out perfect. Okay, now I've used 1/2-inch pink foam for the low ground, and then I used a 1-inch blue foam, all XPS, which is the tightly packed foam for the high ground. And then I used my hot foam wire foam cutter, and I cut out the slopes for the high ground. And I used my hobby knife, like the X-Acto, to cut out the ditches along both sides of my paved road. Now, I don't think you can see the entire map here. Let me go ahead and adjust the camera just slightly. You won't be able to see the entire map, I don't believe. Even if I go all the way down here like this, it's going to cut off the top like that, unfortunately. Okay, so let me just kind of show the end of the map, okay, which this is where the farm complex is going to be, and as you can see, it is incomplete. It is not finished. This is the homemade bridge that I made, the flat bridge right there, and you can see the Mer Duret River going right there. Now, overall, you can see the different. Okay, that right there is Coquigny, which is the main town center, which is going to have 3 buildings, and then there's going to be the church and cemetery building, which is going to sit right here. There will be one additional building sitting over on this tile right about there. So you'll have the 3, 4, 5, and then about 6, 7 buildings on the table right there. This triangle there is going to be an orchard, so I will have rows of individual trees that players can move, out of the way as they move their troops or tanks or whatever through there. And you can see the fields are different shades of paper. I used the like model railroading grass mat paper, cut it out to shape for each of the different tiles, and then I cut them out to shape for each of the fields, because there's a number of different fields that are out on the battlefield, and even like this one right here could have been just one large piece, and then I would have, but instead I actually cut it into 3 pieces where there's a gap between the paper, and then even in all the gaps, well, not all the gaps, because I think there's a gap there and there's a gap there that I didn't bother putting the like dirt texture in. I used kind of a brown, I used the dark, what do they call it, the Vallejo dark earth for the edges here. But then I started to mix a little bit of brown paint in with it, and I used that for the roads, and the some slopes over here are brown where these are more gray. And then what I did was I took some a little bit of that, and I disguised all these fields. Now these fields are going to be separated by either hedges or bocage, and I'll need to figure out exactly how many bocages and hedges that I need. I believe I have probably about 2/3 of them already completed. I'll just have to go back in and figure out exactly what I'm going to need. So this side here is the German deployment zone. Pretty much anything on this side of the causeway is the German deployment zone, and then everything on this side of the causeway is the American deployment zone, and then everything in between is no man's land. This area here between the hills is flooded. The Germans had broken a dam and flooded the area, so there is deep water through this entire area. But I didn't want to model that because I wanted to be able to use this battlefield for any other battle. It didn't have to be the Mer d'Arret. I could, if I really wanted to, I could take all 3 of these tiles out of the picture, and I could just slide this entire thing 2 feet to the right and just have this road here connect directly to this road there, right? If I wanted to do that. Or I could take these 3 tiles off and then put them maybe on the back side over here or something like that. But I'm not doing any of that. There is a scenario, I was looking through some of my skirmish campaign books. There is a scenario where it's a causeway. It's a similar situation where it's flooded like this, and the battle starts at the tip of the causeway, and then it works its way up onto land. I looked at it and I was like, I could actually use this exact same setup for that battle. I would have to discard this bridge and river section, but that's perfectly fine. I mean, I'm glad about that. Now, I have another set of the blue foam, which I can make a 4x6 battlefield, which I plan to do for my American War of Independence, and I can make it double-sided because there's not going to be any hills. Because this had hills and it had low ground and high ground, and I elevated everything with the pink foam under the 1-inch boards, I decided not to make this double-sided. So it's not double-sided. But some of the things you can see that I need to work on is the hedges, obviously. I need to work on the ditches, because what I do plan to do with the highway ditches is fill them with flock. Even though a lot of them are going to have hedges right up against the road or bocage, I still want to fill them with flock just to basically just to fill up the ditches. Okay, right. This area is going to have a bunch of trees. I separated these with different colors and different textures, and it's going to make it easier for me to lay out the hedges to separate all the fields, because now I know where all the field lines are basically. Tonight I actually went ahead and painted the sides of the boards. Here, let me pull a board. Okay, I painted the sides of the board. I'm trying to look at my camera to see if it's in camera. There we go. I painted the sides of the boards with a crocodile green mixed with a olive drab green, mixed with the hard Mod Podge, right? Which is, oh, camera. There we go. Which is the hard coat. Basically, I did that. Not only will it disguise or help disguise the gaps between the boards. Now, I don't know if you can see this. These boards will actually fit together very well. It's just that once I laid it out, I don't have any room to really crawl around the outer edge and organize and nudge it and tweak it until everything gets lined up just perfectly. I just wanted to show you, so I laid it out on the floor, and then, to be honest, I used my tape measure here to kind of grab the edges and pull on them a little bit to make sure that everything was kind of, you know, on line with each other. But there is going to be some discrepancy, right? I mean, you can't make it perfect, but well, I tried. This line actually looks really good the way it is. But by painting the edges the way I did, it does a couple of things. It's going to protect the foam from getting damaged through transport, but it's also going to disguise the gap, you know, during play. So that's, you know, that's that. Now on these fields here, this is just a little update for you guys. On these fields here and the ones down there, I was actually considering plowing these fields and putting like ruts and putting some tufts for in strips to make it really look like a field, where I decided against that. I don't think that's really going to be necessary, because once I put the hedges on here, I could just throw out some scatter like lichen or something like that, just to give it a little bit more vegetative look. But I think my wild hedges that I'm going to be making are going to really make a difference, and with the color transition, I think that really makes a difference as well. And at this scale, remember it's 15 millimeter, I don't think I need to make ruts. I thought about HO. What is this in my mouth? Okay, candy. I thought I made some on the previous set of tiles that I threw away. I had actually used an HO plowed field, and it came out to be very thick and too big and bulky. And then I saw that there was an N scale plowed field that I could use as well, but I've noticed that my N scale stuff is about half the scale. It's too small. So N scale would work better with 10 millimeter than 15 millimeter. Okay, yeah, and one more thing. This was a mistake. When I went to paint the roads, I painted up to the edge of this grass which that was my first mistake. When I cut this piece of green grass, I didn't cut it to shape. It's supposed to be straight out from this flowered field. It's supposed to be straight to the road, but I didn't cut it that way because I'm mistaken. And so when I went to paint the road, I painted it all the way to the grass, which it should have been, but the road was supposed to be right along this gray or this tan area, because on the ditch that I've got cut, the road connects right there. So later I went back in and I fixed it. I put the texture in there where it belongs. So what I need to do now is just go in maybe with some actual flock and just flock that area, with just some normal grass flock or whatever. The river, the edge of the river needs to be, I need to put some flock and vegetation, clump foliage, stuff like that along this riverbank. The sides, the slopes of these hills, I didn't want it to just be texture. I didn't want to use the grass paper up and down the hills. I could have done that, but I decided I want to do some scattered vegetation along these hill slopes, maybe about a 1/3 clumps, just scattered grass and bushes and stuff like that all along these hills. And I will definitely do that. Now, I'm not going to put any attached bushes on the tops of the hills, the high ground, because I want to be able to take these tiles and store them somewhere flat, either in a box or on top of each other. And if there was bushes or trees attached directly to the high ground, they wouldn't stack properly. But if I put attached vegetation in the low ground or the hill slopes, there won't be a problem. I'm not going to do it on these two tiles, which are just perfectly flat low grounds, because they will lay flat currently on the map or in the box or on the table. But if I was to put any bushes or hedges directly on those two, they wouldn't lay flat. And I'm not going to put any bushes or hedges on the high ground, because then it won't be able to lay flat. So any vegetation that's going to go on the high ground or the low ground will have to be separate pieces that can be picked up and stored separately, like in a box. All right, now I also want to point out that I've got all my German Grenadier platoons. I have my American Paratrooper platoon, and I have my 2 U.S. infantry platoons, as well as the weapons platoon, the Renault R35s, and the Sherman 75 is all complete, ready to go. I just finished tonight. I just finished doing my shell holes, which I'm going to scatter them around this little field right here, because this town was shelled. I'm not going to put it on this side. I'm just going to put them all right in that field right there, and they'll just be scattered around, just to give them the impression that yes, that town was shelled. I might even use a rubbled building in there, but I probably won't. Oh, and I repainted one of my entrenchments. Now I'm still waiting for my Boeda entrenchments. They have been, okay, it's been a while, but they've my tracking shows that they've left Italy. So now I'm just waiting for them to, it says they're in transit to destination country, which I guess would be the U.S. And so I expect them to be here. Actually, I expect them to be here within the week. So I've got that on the way. And when those come in, that'll be a quick fix. On the computer, I've got a list. I went through all, this is just a little aside. It's not really part of this Lafier Bridge project. It is part of my overall World War II 15mm project. I went through all the campaign books that I personally am interested in, which is the D-Day Overlord, the D-Day Hedgerow Country, which is 2 books, Market Garden, Vlach am Rhein. I think that's it. I think those are the 4 scenario books that I have that I'm extremely interested in, which is all basically Western Front stuff. I went through all 4 of those books. I went through all the published scenarios in those books, and then I compiled a list of all the miniatures I would need if I was crazy. But I went through and I listed all the miniatures that I would need to be able to play any of those printed scenarios. It's really not that long of a list. I thought it would be a lot longer. Now the German vehicle list is extremely long, but because you need one of these and one of those and one of these and one of those, and they pretty much have like 30 different, well, more than 30 different vehicles, and each scenario might use one of those different vehicles in it. Like one scenario had some mobile wagons, another vehicle had a Whirlwind. Another scenario might have had a SDKFZ 7-1 with 20. Another one will have a truck with a 20. Another one will have a bunch of Malteers. Another one has a horse limber. So it's kind of a small list, to be honest, except for the individual vehicles for the Germans. Now, if I could buy one vehicle at a time, I would do that. But usually, most companies sell them anywhere between 3 to 5 at a time. And even if I need one, I would have to order like 3 of them. So I've thought about it, and I think I'm going to do it anyway, and then take those extra 2 that I never am going to use, and either save them and make my own scenarios, or sell them. Right? So I'm caught between a hard place. But like if I do a paratrooper company, I pretty much have all the paratroopers I'm going to need for all the paratrooper scenarios. And then if I need a British paratrooper company, I'll do that. And then if I need a Fallschirmjäger company, I'll do that. And then a German Grenadier company, I'll do that. So it looks like if you do a company of like all the different categories, like Grenadiers, Fallschirmjägers, SS, English or British paratroopers, rifles, and then if you do American rifles and paratroopers, you pretty much can do every scenario. There is one scenario that needs 7 British platoons, which is like 3+ companies. So I don't know. I might proxy some Americans in there or replace them, or I might, I don't know what I'm going to do with that, or use their paratroopers instead. These were all like late war, just standard British rifles. I'm probably not going to do that scenario ever. Now, I thought about writing my own scenario. That was another thing. Okay, back up. Remember the 4x6 that I was thinking about cutting out? Okay, I think I'm going to do it for Freeman's Farm, but also I'm thinking about getting some more blue tiles to do my Napoleonic battlefields and my not my ancients, because I think I'm going to do just like a generic flat table for my ancients. But there's one scenario I'm super excited to branch into that's not in any of the books. I would have to go in and create my own scenario, which is no problem. I can do that. It's the Pegasus Bridge, with the river that runs through the canal, actually, that runs through the middle. You got the Orne River Bridge. You got the gliders that come in and land. There's an assault, and it's a very small battle, to be honest. It could be, I could actually do it man to man, but I probably won't. I'm probably going to do the same thing, Flames of War style, 4-figure bases, because most squads stick together anyway. And then, yeah. All right, so I think I talked enough about my table. Now let me bring these miniatures up to the camera. And I'm going to zoom in on them and focus in on them and show you my miniatures 2.0. All right, we're back. I just wanted to show the figures off real quick. I'm pretty proud of these guys. These are all the 82nd. These are the paratroopers. These are the glider troops. And this guy, I don't remember which regiment he's from, but the paratroopers are elements of the 507th, and this is elements of E and G Company of the 325th glider. All right, so we take a look at it real quick. We've got the 3 10-man squads right here, 3 10-man squads right there. You got the 4-man command or platoon leader for each of those. Plus you have what's called in the game terms, it's called senior commander, which basically gives you bonuses on your command rolls. He's the company commander. And back here we got the weapons platoon, which has the 2 light machine guns and the 2 mortars. It also we have a command element, which right here is just a 10-man squad. It is a staff squad, so this is just your standard, like possibly glider troops, pilots, or just possibly company headquarters elements. You have 2 forward observer teams, which are not, one is a forward observer team and the other one is what's called an FSU. It's a communications team, so it basically makes communicating with your artillery a lot easier. This is an M4 75. All of these figures here are Battlefront figures, except for those 2, which are Old Glory figures. And those are the 2 medics. We got 2 individual medics, FOs, command, company headquarters, and then the paratroopers. We've got 2 12-man squads. In those squads, you've got a light machine gun team. So you got your squad leader section there. You got your machine gun team, and then the rest 7 guys back here. Now this platoon, or I should say, it's not even really technically a platoon. It is the remaining elements of the fighting that's been going on for the last couple of days over the Lafayette Bridge. As a platoon headquarters element, which has the officer and his escort is like a 6-man squad, but there's 4 and 2. And then there's a 60 light mortar and a bazooka team. This is the entire American force. Now let me go ahead and I got the Germans. I'll show you here in just a second. But let me bring these up a little closer and show you what they look like. Okay, let's start with the tank. It's basic. It's a plastic model, very lightweight, removable turret. 75. There you go. I mean, it's very clean. I didn't put a lot of weathering on this guy. I could always add that later, and I actually am considering adding a little bit of weathering to this. Okay, my FOs. I'm just only going to give you like a selection of figures. I'm not going to show you every single figure. That would just take a minute. But we've got our FOs. And I just dig the way I did the bases. I think it's really cool. And then you got your radio man with the FO. Right, we got a machine gunner. You know, behind a bush, taking care of business. Got our mortars or mortar team. Got an Old Glory medic. Now I put a white stripe on their arm. I think I need to put a little cross in there. I'm not sure, or maybe a cross on his bag to really emphasize the fact that he's a medic. The players are going to know. Now the platoon leader has an officer, but I also gave him an NCO. The senior officer is only an officer in an NCO. And then the squads have the little NCO in charge. Now these squads are broken down into 2 halves. So they break it down into fire teams where 6 men are in one part. So you have the NCO and 4 riflemen. Well, 5 riflemen total for 6. And then the BAR team, you've got a BAR, but he also has an NCO. So it's two fire teams basically per squad. It just basically gives you more flexibility, more maneuverability on the battlefield. Okay, we're just going to grab a couple more. I love the way I did my bushes. I used not only the tufts, but I also used the clump foliage. I think the clump foliage actually looks better, or basically maybe not better, just different, and it gives it a variety look on the base. You know, there's that's a BAR with a broken barrel, just letting you know. And then we look at the paratroopers here. You know, they got their gloves on. Some of them have musette bags. Now I've got 2 officer stripes on this to let the players know that this is considered a senior officer, or could be considered a senior officer. Now the squads, they come with the NCO, guy pointing. He's got his Thompson, he's got his M1, and you got the machine gun team. Also, I put the machine gun teams down between bushes, and you got your assistant, carrying extra ammo up. Now, the airborne don't have BARs. They just have rifles. And there you got a guy throwing a grenade. And then one of the bases is a 3-man base. Now, I have considered not rebasing them, but maybe getting another package of airborne. And if I do, I'll rebase this squad completely. I'll do it a different way. What I'll do is I'll basically take these two figures and instead put one of them on the machine gun base and one of them on the 3-figure base, so that all 3 bases would have 4 figures. And that way, I don't know, it'll just balance out better in my mind. Okay, we got an airborne mortar. Got a guy with some binos. And then we got a bazooka man. And a guy carrying a bunch of extra bazooka shells. Yeah, I'm really digging this 15mm World War II project. I'm really excited. Okay, so you've pretty much seen that I've got everything ready for the Americans. Let me go ahead and transfer this out for the Germans so you get to see what they look like. Okay, we're back with the German forces. The German forces have 3 grenadier platoons. These grenadier platoons have 3 squads each. These guys are all pretty much full strength. These are 8-man squads. So there's 2 bases of 4 with 1 machine gun per squad. So you're looking at like a lot of machine guns here. And then also each squad has their NCO with, submachine gun. The platoon leader has his 4-man escort as well. So you got platoon leader, 4-man. There's not a company commander. There's no senior commander. There is an FO for spotting. There is a sniper that I've got here. We've got 2 Renault R35s. These are inactive. These guys will be placed on the battlefield as roadblocks. And then there is an 8-centimeter mortar section right there. And this is the entire German force. We're looking at only 3 officers. I'm not sure if this FO is considered an officer. I'll have to take a look at that. But basically, they only have 3 officers. And the number of officers you have influence your command and control ability die rolls. We'll get into any of that coming up real soon on my project updates. I'm also going to update by not necessarily filming an update, but by doing the battle group rules tutorial. It's going to be called Boot Camp, and like all my other tutorials are. And it's basically just going to be me reading the rules out loud and putting my 2 cents in, trying to understand and grasp the rules. And I'll have figures on the table kind of highlighting what that rule means to me, how I interpret the rule. And you can watch that video and learn quite a bit about the rules. And but that'll be coming up in the near future. I would say probably in less than a month I'll probably start doing that. Okay, so we're going to pull these figures up and take a really close look at them. I do want to point out that these figures all right here come out of the Grenadier Company box set, where this sniper is actually a Plastic Soldier Company Grenadier. The FO is a Grenadier, but the mortar team comes out of the late war German mortars. It's not a Grenadier or an SS or anything like that. These guys are all wearing jack boots. They don't have camouflage smocks. So I painted their helmets up like a Normandy helmet, and which the Normandy helmet usually has a 2 or 3 color camouflage scheme. Now these guys are wearing camouflage smocks. I used my new basing method, which I'm really liking. I'm really digging. Let's go ahead and pull some of these figures up so you can take a look. All right, this guy has the machine gun firing over the shoulder, and you can see the camouflage that I did on their camouflage smocks. They're wearing combat boots with gaiters, and some of them aren't. This is your, I mean, he has the gaiters, but he doesn't have the camouflage smock. It's actually rolled up on his back. We got you can see this helmet here is not a camouflage, and this one too is not a camouflage cover, where this one is. The camouflage cover is painted just like the camouflage smock, identical, but the helmets, I made a slight change to basically because it's paint on metal, right? Okay, instead of a fabric. I used the AK tufts. These are 2mm tufts. It gives an interesting look, but I think the 2mm tufts are better suited for like 10mm or micro armor. I really like the clump foliage bushes. All right, that's a shoulder firing machine gunner. This guy is carrying his machine gun underarm. And I made a change on the way I paint the, what do they call that thing? The gas mask canister. Changed the color in which I painted. I used to paint it like a really dark green. I'm now painting it a tanker field gray, which is kind of a brown gray. It's weird. It's a weird color, but what do you guys think? You think that's a good looking Normandy color? I think it is, actually. And then you got the camouflage smocks. All right, that was an underarm machine gunner. And then I have another machine gunner that's carrying it at the hip. His assistant gunner is carrying ammo on his shoulder and in his hands. And you'll notice some of these guys actually have the soft caps on, like there's camouflage smock. That looks good. I'm super happy with the way these guys turned out. And let's see, is there another machine gunner? Nope, those are pretty much the 3 poses of the machine gunners. There's like an NCO with his MP40. We got NCO and the guy in the back with the Panzerfaust soft caps. The officer with his trench coat, binoculars. Just a regular rifle squad. Or team, really. This is half a squad. This is the way I normally paint Grenadiers or Germans. I think I want to go back and give this guy some camouflage, either for his helmet, well, definitely for his helmet, but maybe touch up his bread bag, which I didn't really darken enough. And you see how his gas mask canisters, the dark green, this is the way I used to do it. I think I'm going to come back and readjust. Yeah. Now this is my FO, same officer model, but I gave him a radio man that's tagging along with him. Okay, and I mentioned these mortars. I just finished these today. Actually, I'm going to have to say I did these mortars in one day. I started today and finished tonight. They still need to be dull coated. I can see that right now. These guys are shiny. Yeah, I need to dull coat these guys. I dull coated all those guys. I just finished these tonight. This is 2 of the 6 that come out of the mortar pack. You got the guy here, loader, or I guess you're going to drop the round. You got an NCO there. The other mortar, this guy's the same, but the other 2 are different. We got a rifleman, and then this guy's got some rounds in a box. I put a little bit of the camouflage on their helmets. It will actually, once I dull coat it, it'll actually change the appearance. I even put a little bit of green and brown on their gas mask canister. I wanted to give these guys a little bit more camouflage because they don't have the camouflage smocks on. I think I'm going to order the what do they call it? The SS mortar pack. I think I'm going to order that just because of the camouflage smocks, but I don't know. These guys look really good anyway. Okay. And then, I don't know if you've already seen my Renaults. These are one of the first things I did. These are Old Glory metals. I glued the turret down so it wouldn't move, and I used an old Warlord Games half-track cross on them. This was before I got my 15mm crosses. And I got 3 of those actually, but I only need 2 roadblocks for this this scenario. I also just finished these today. These are my craters. Yeah, I just finished painting those today. These guys are like a resin. I primed them a burnt umber a long time ago, so these have been super dark brown, basically that color, for a long time, and I decided let's go ahead and just finish them. So I dry brushed some brown, and then I gave it a wash, and then I went back in and flocked them. I wanted to use the same flock as these guys, basically for continuity. But these are basically just going to go onto the battlefield, mainly as eye candy. Because they're not really going to have any effect on the game. If people want to take cover in them or around them, they can, but they're really mainly for eye candy. Alright guys, thanks for coming out and checking out my newest project update. You got to see the map. You got to see all the figures that I've finished. And I'm basically just, I'm so excited about this World War II project. I'm actually already considering other World War II projects. I think I need to just rein it in and start working on my American War of Independence project, or I'll never get it finished. Because I just need to start it. But I'm not finished on this. I still need to make the hedges and the bocage to finish up the maps. I need to work on where the buildings go. I need to put the foliage, like bushes and flock, around the map in various places, and then it would be finished. All right, guys, I'll catch you in the next one.